This also comes from the Lord of hosts. He is wonderful in counsel and excellent in wisdom. Hello everybody, this is Gilgamesh, and this is our fourth and final section of Isaiah chapter 28. Our previous sections, we've talked about the drunkards of Ephraim, and we've talked about the teaching of children, and we also talked about the scoffers and the foundation stone. This time we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to talk about planting crops, and I'm going to rely a lot on the writings of Dr. Terry Ball, who was a professor of mine in college, and he just gave a great talk that covered this section of Isaiah very well. He is, by training, a botanist, and he also knows a fair bit about Hebrew and the Hebrew Bible, and so he's not just approaching this completely uninformed or anything like that. He's bringing his knowledge of botany and also his knowledge of the tradition of the Hebrew Bible into his logic that he brings in here. He was speaking primarily on the interplay between religion and science, and his entire talk is great, but I will only be using that portion that deals specifically with this portion of Isaiah. I will first go through and read the section of Isaiah that we're talking about, and then I will primarily be using Dr. Ball's words to explain this. It says here, "Give ear and hear my voice. Give attention and hear my speech." So we have this introductory part here, a fairly standard prophetic formulation here, inviting us to listen carefully about what we're being told. And then we go into what can really be called a parable here. "Does he who plows for sowing plow continually? Does he continually open and harrow his ground? When he has leveled its surface, does he not scatter dill, sow cumin, and put in wheat in rows, and barley in its proper place, and emmer as the border? For he is rightly instructed, his God teaches him. Dill is not threshed with a threshing sledge, nor is a cartwheel rolled over cumin, but dill is beaten out with a stick, and cumin with a rod. Does one crush grain for bread? No, he does not thresh it forever. When he drives his cartwheel over it with his horses, he does not crush it. This also comes from the Lord of hosts. He is wonderful in counsel and excellent in wisdom." So Dr. Ball, and I'll put a link to his full speech down below, he says, "Over and over, my faith has informed my science, and my science has informed my faith." As an example, I'd like to share with you a passage from Isaiah 28, and then he reads what we just did. This metaphor begins with a series of rhetorical questions. They make the point that a wise farmer does not spend all his time plowing his field over and over again, but rather, when the job has been adequately accomplished and the ground has been broken up and harrowed, he then proceeds to level it and sow the seeds. 5 different cultivators are sown in the field for this wise farmer, each according to the manner that best suits its growth and requirements of relative value. The first types of seeds sown are Fitches and Cumin. Fitches have been variously identified as dill, vetches, caraway, and poppies, but are now usually understood to be a plant commonly called nutmeg flower or black cumin. And he gives the reference here to Plants of the Bible, Volume 1, in Chronica Botanica, and it says, "This is an annual herb of about 30 centimeters tall and has finely incised leaves. Its branches end in a showy white to blue flower possessing a 5 meris corolla. The mature fruit is a pubescent capsule which contains a plethora of very small black seeds." And he gives as a source for this another book called Plants of the Bible that was published in Tel Aviv. "These aromatic seeds are as pungent as pepper and are thought to predate pepper in their use as a spice. In the Holy Land and Egypt, they are sprinkled over breads and pastries or added to curries and other dishes. Cumin also produces small pungent seeds used as a flavoring for breads and dishes. The seeds have a taste similar to caraway seeds and have been used in folk medicine as an antispasmodic. They are also the source of an oil used in perfumes. Cumin is an annual herb of the carrot family with highly dissected leaves. It grows from 1 to 2 feet tall and produces white to pink flowers in terminal umbels. Because both nutmeg flower and cumin have plentiful and relatively small seeds which do not require special spacing in their planting, the wise farmer sows them by merely throwing or scattering them over the earth. 3 different kinds of cereal grains, 2 wheats and 1 barley, were next planted in the wise farmer's field. First mentioned is Chita, which was most likely the bread wheat Triticum aestivum, as it was the most common wheat grown at the time. And he cites there Baker's Encyclopedia of Biblical Plants to support that. This remarkable wheat produces seed heads that do not spontaneously shatter, and yet with a minimal amount of threshing, they yield an abundance of naked kernels. A superior bread flour is made from its high gluten grains. Accordingly, a wise farmer sows these valuable seeds much more cautiously. Rather than haphazardly broadcasting them about, he carefully places the valuable seeds in furrows, thus ensuring adequate germination, spacing, and watering. The next grain mentioned, barley, was also to be sown in this prudent manner in its appointed place. 3 types of barley are known to have been cultivated in biblical times: common barley, 2-row barley, and 6-row barley. Although barley was generally considered inferior to wheat for human consumption, it was still grown for animal use at locations where the soil, moisture, and temperature would not support the less tolerant wheats. The last cereal grain sown in this metaphor is translated as rye, was probably a type of spelt wheat, that is, one in which the seed is firmly encased in the efflorescence bracts or chaff, and thus not easily threshed. Being an inferior wheat, mostly used for animal fodder, the wise farmer planted the rye in its place, which is better translated as in the field's edges or borders. Just as the wise farmer planted each cultivar in the field in the most efficacious manner, he also threshed them in the way that would yield optimal results. The delicate herbs, cumin and nutmeg flower, were not threshed with threshing sledges or cartwheels, but rather carefully beaten out with a stick. In contrast, the more robust cereal grains were threshed with a cart, but not to the extent that the kernels were crushed. Thus, in his preparation, sowing, and harvesting, the wise farmer treated each cultivar in the best manner. The metaphor suggests that the Lord acts in the same way. He has prepared for each people a place that is best for their growth and development, and placed them there in the fashion that best suits their needs and plans for them. When it comes time for threshing, that is, chastening, separating out, or gathering in the people, he will not do it so vigorously as to destroy them, but rather in a fashion that will maximize his harvest of saved souls. This passage from Isaiah has become significantly more coherent and meaningful to me thanks to my scientific experience. I have enjoyed countless similar experiences of understanding in my gospel study, and my faith has played an important role in directing my scientific study. I feel to exclaim as Isaiah, "This also cometh from the Lord of hosts, which is wonderful in counsel and excellent in working." So I thought that was a really neat bit of talk by Dr. Ball there. Certainly more than I know about these crops. And so I felt like I couldn't really improve on what he said as far as the explanation of what we're seeing in this section here. So I'll just let it stand as it is. Only thing that I do want to point out here is the final closing here. This also comes from the Lord of hosts. He is wonderful in counsel. Now, here we have a very interesting phrase that harkens back to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 5, or in some English editions, verse 6, where the wonderful child, the fourth wonderful child, is mentioned, and his name is given as Wonderful Counselor. We here have these same words again applied to the Lord himself this time rather than the child, that he is the Wonderful Counselor. And it's the exact same words that we had back in Isaiah 9, slightly different grammatical forms, but the same words. And then it says excellent in wisdom. That doesn't capture the Hebrew well. The Hebrew here is higdil Tushiyyah. Higdil is a fairly simple word. It means to make bigger, to cause to become bigger, to embiggen. So he has made greater, or he has increased, or he has amplified Tushiyyah. Tushiyyah is our interesting word here. And I'll put up the reference here from the lexicon. We're not sure what this word means, or we're not sure of a great way to bring this across into English, and the lexicon goes on at some length about this. It means, in one sense, triumph, victory, success, but it means a bit more than that. It is used commonly in wisdom literature, and it is, well, the lexicon here says, the various suggestions have been presented to show how difficult it is to give an adequate translation of the Hebrew word, for it has no real equivalent in modern languages. It appears as one of the favorite ideas of wisdom literature, where it takes on many shades of meaning. The general sense has been rather accurately defined by Gemser, where it really means the promotion of being, encouraging something to exist, allowing the successful outcome of an inquiry. As such, it means help as much as cleverness or skill. This is said to indicate the productive skill in an action, as well as, at the same time, the action itself. So both the thing being done with skill and the thing that is produced with skill, and the skill here primarily is wisdom. So he amplifies the things that are done with wisdom. Seems to be what the last two words here seem to indicate in this. So we're saying here that the Lord of hosts is a wonderful counselor. You could also translate this as the Lord of hosts puts forth a wonderful plan. So we have the idea here, the word counsel really means more of to plan something out. And wonderful means wonderful. So he has a wonderful plan that he has designed, that he puts forward, and he increases the things that are brought about through this wise action. And that's what we're saying here. And this fits very nicely with Dr. Ball's interpretation of this parable of the planting of the seeds here, is that each seed needs its own special treatment and plan. And we're saying here that the Lord of hosts is one who puts out a plan that is a wonderful plan, and that it increases the wisdom and the success that comes from the wise planting of these seeds. I think that's very nice, and I think the ending goes nicely with that, and it interestingly seems to hearken back to the idea of the wonderful child, which, if that is Hezekiah, then that brings very nicely this into a nice historical context as Hezekiah prepares to stand off against Assyria. But that is the last section here of section 28. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and we'll move on to chapter 29 and a whole new woe in that chapter. Thank you and goodbye.